Okay, good day and welcome to the part 2 video discussion of Module 2, the Parabolas. So for this topic, I'll be going to discuss about more properties of parabolas. So the parabolas we considered so far in the first part are all vertical and have their vertices at the origin. So there are other parabolas also that instead nga nag-open sila vertically, they open horizontally, or that is to the left or to the right. And some of them have vertices not located at the origin. So dili always nga nasa 0, 0 malocate ang atong parabola. So it can be located sa first quadrant, second, third, or fourth quadrant sa ato ang rectangular plane. And their standard equations and properties are given in the box below, so nakasummarize na. And their corresponding computations are more involved but are similar to the ones above. So katong pag-derive na ko sa equation ganiha sa parabola that is opening upward and downward. So these have the same lang equation, so that I will not be showing that anymore. So in all four cases below, so we assume that the c, or our constant, which is the distance from our vertex going to our focus, or from vertex going to our directrix, should be greater than to 0. So the vertex there, or v, is at hk. So remember, sa ato ang circle nga discussion, di ba? The center of the circle, yung coordinate is h and k. So similarly, at the center or at the midpoint of our parabola, ang ato pong coordinate is denoted in h and k na mga letters. And it lies between the focus and the directrix. Again, vertex is at the midpoint, or that is between our focus F and our directrix L. So the focus F is c units away from our vertex V. So the distance between our vertex V going to our focus F is c units. So kanang c nga makita ninyo sa inyong standard equation, that is the distance from the vertex going to the focus, or the distance from our vertex going to our directrix. So equal na siya nga distance sa c. And recall that for any point on a parabola, its distance from the focus is the same as its distance from the directrix. So these are the four cases that I was mentioned earlier. So natay tulo ka pwede nga mahitabo nga possible nga form sa ato ang parabola. So first is just similar sa ato ang part 1 discussion, but our vertex is not located at the origin anymore. So instead of our standard equation having x squared is equal to 4cy, so since we have coordinate na sa atong vertex, then we write it as x minus h. So h is the x coordinate of our vertex, squared minus 4c times y minus k, which is again, k is the y coordinate of our vertex. So we have h here and k. So they have very similar lang equation. So how about for our parabola facing downward? So they have the same equation, but C4 may mo lang siyang negative. So that is for parabola facing vertically, bali upward or downward. So how about for the horizontal nato nga parabola, or those are parabolas that are opening to left or right side sa ato ang rectangular plane. So for parabola that is facing at the right side of your rectangular plane, our equation will be y minus k squared is equal to 4c times x minus h. So ang nagbaliktad lang is kaning si x minus h, ug si y minus k. So again, if it is facing to your right, then the equation should be y minus k squared. So si y ang naka-square equals 4c times x minus h. And if it is facing naman to your left side, then just take the negative of your kanang positive nga equation. So instead, we have y minus k squared is equal to negative 4c times x minus h. So these are the four standard equations that you should memorize. So dili lang ang equation ang inyong memorize, but also the position of your parabola. So the way I memorize it is if the parabola is facing upward or downward, so that is opposite to our x-axis. So meaning our line here, this determines kung asa ang naka-square sa ato. So the directrix will determine kung si x ba or si y ang naka-square sa atong equation. So if our directrix is similar to our x-axis, meaning it is also horizontal, then our square part sa atong equation, so this is the square part of our equation, kani, is our x also. So mo ng x minus h squared. But if our directrix is similar to our y-axis, so similar siya sa atong y-axis, ang nagpa-vertical siya, then the square part of our standard equation is our y. So mo nang natay y minus k squared. So how do you determine if positive 4c siya or negative 4c siya? So imo lang lantawon. So yung tapad is y, 'di ba? Ang tapad ni C dari is y. So you just determine kung pasaka siya, meaning sa y-axis, ang nasa taas nga part sa y-axis is always positive nga mga numbers. And if paubos naman siya, so sa y-axis, that is always negative values sa imong y. So meaning negative po datong 4 nga ibutang dari. So for the right and left, so ang katapad sa tong C is x. So if it is facing or opening to our right, that means it is positive, di ba? The right side of our x-axis is always positive siyang mga numbers. And sa tong left side is always the negative number. So that's how I memorize or familiarize the standard equation and the faces of the or where our parabola is opening. So it is up to you. So unsaon ninyo siya pag manipulate, unsaon ninyo siya pag kanang pag-diskarte para ma-memorize ninyo og dali. Okay? So again, the kaning square nga part sa tong equation that is indicated from our directrix. So if horizontal siya, meaning x ang naka-squared, kung vertical na y ang naka-squared. So nata diri directrix L is horizontal. So for kani nga duha nga type sa tong parabola or case sa tong parabola, they are ayang directrix is horizontal and the other side is vertical. Then the axis of symmetry. So the axis of symmetry is always opposite or perpendicular to our directrix. So if horizontal lang atong directrix, then vertical ang ato ang axis of symmetry. So the same with if vertical atong directrix, then our our axis of symmetry is horizontal. And our x there is just be equal to our h or the x coordinates atong vertex. And our y is just the y coordinates ato ang vertex or that is the k. So the equations are in terms of x minus h and y minus k, di ba? X minus h and y minus k. So the vertex coordinates are subtracted from the corresponding variable. So this is the variable, so x and y. Then kaning h and k na to, those are our vertex coordinates. Thus, replacing both our h and k with 0 would yield the case where the vertex is in the origin. So for example, so ang atong example ganiya sa ato ang part 1 discussion is at the origin. So what if our vertex is located at the origin, meaning our h and k's are 0. So ma 0 ni siya. So x minus 0 is just equal to x. So x squared is x squared equal to 4cy. So remember, x squared minus 4cy, mo na siya atong discussion atong part 1. So meaning this is true. So they are the same. So for instance, these replacements applied to x minus h squared is equal to 4c times y minus k. So that means the parabola is opening upward. So mo kung gingon, it will result to x squared is equal to 4cy, which is the first standard equation that we have encountered, or what I have discussed in the first part of this module. So if the x part is squared, so the parabola is vertical. So kung ang ato ng x part dari kay siya ang naka-squared, just like this, x minus h squared, so siya ang naka-squared, then our parabola is vertical. So it is facing or opening upward or downward. And if in a horizontal parabola, the focus is on the left or right. Kanin pa day. If the y part is squared, then the parabola is horizontal. So kaganiya, if the x part is squared, then the parabola is vertical. Then by the time nga ang parabola nato, ang equation sa tong parabola kay ang y part niya naka-square, meaning it is opening horizontally. So pwede sa left or sa tong right. So how can we determine that is opening sa tong left or right? So in horizontal parabola, the focus is on left or right of the vertex, and the directrix is vertical. So if the coefficient of the linear non-square part is positive, then the parabola opens upward or right. So mo ni siyang mga conditions. So kung positive daw siya, pas ani 4c, then it is either opening upward or at the right side. So kaning duhang naa sa taas. But if it is negative, then it should be opening downward or at our left. So kaning nga explanation, this is kanang lisod na kayo. Lisod na kayo siya memorization. So much better to akong gi-suggest sa inyo on how to memorize the opening of the parabola and its standard equations. So let's have an example. So figure 2.3 shows the graph of parabola with only its focus and vertex indicated. So wala gi-indicate ang directrix and ang axis of symmetry. So ang given lang sa graph is the focus and the vertex. So we are asked to find its standard equation. So given daw tag graph nga indicated si vertex and si focus. So first thing you should do is to identify which of those four cases ang atong gamiton nga standard equation. So natay upat ka cases, diba? So since we already know that our parabola is facing at the left side, then we can conclude that the standard equation of our parabola should be y minus k squared is equal to negative 4c x minus h. So kani nga part. So this is the standard equation that we are going to use. So that is the first step you should always have to know. So kung unsa nga standard equation ang imuhang gamiton. Next is to identify the missing kanang mga values sa imuhang standard equation. So for this standard equation, ang ato ang kailangan ma-solve is the k, kani si k, and our h. So k and h are the coordinates of our vertex. Diba? H is the x coordinate sa tong vertex and k is the y coordinate sa tong vertex. And of course, our c. Again, c here is the distance from our vertex going to our focus, or it can be the distance from our vertex going to our directrix. So, muna siya ang c. So, since we are given sa graph o vertex. So our vertex is located at positive 5 nga x and negative 4 nga y. So mo ni siya iyahang coordinate. That means our h coordinate is equal to 5 and our k is equal to negative 4. So 2 down na, nakabalo na ta sa h and sa k. So lastly, ang atong pangitaon na lang is our C. So what is the value of our C? Again, C is the distance from our vertex going to our focus. So from the graph, since given at a graph, dali na kay siya identify. So we just have to count the distance. So if this is 5, dayon ang focus na siya dari. So we just have to count from here. So this is 1, 2. Meaning, the distance from our vertex to our focus is equal to 2. So our C is equal to 2. So similarly, if we are going to use the vertex going to our directrix, so that is 1, 2. So the same lang distance. So they have C is equal to 2. So since na-identify na nato ang mga missing parts, so the last step is to substitute them. So again, we have y minus k. Ang atong value sa atong k is negative 4. So that becomes positive because negative times negative, may mo siyang positive. So y plus 4 squared is equal to negative 4 times our c is 2. So 4 times 2 is 8. So that's why we have 8 here. Times x minus h. So our h is the x coordinate of our vertex, which is equal to 5. So we have our final standard equation equal to y plus 4 squared is equal to negative 8 times x minus 5. So dili pa na mao kay ang mo pa nang unang nga pangutana, find the standard equation. Next is to find the directrix. So aha man ang directrix ani. So wala pa ni siyang line dari ha sa given. So this is just the solution. So 'di ba, if you remember the distance between the focus and the vertex is the same distance from our vertex to our directrix. And our directrix is a line which is opposite to the opening of our parabola. So since our parabola is opening to the left, so naa sa likod niya ang C directrix. So we have to count since distance ni F to V is 2, so mag-count po tag 2 steps away sa ato ang vertex. So that's why we have this imaginary line or this broken line nga directrix. So its directrix is C is equal to 2 units from our vertex, which is equal to x is equal to 7. So x na ang ato ang directrix dari. So if opening upwards or downwards, so atong directrix kay y. So dari x, that is because kung asa nag-touch ang ato ang line, atong broken line, kung aha siya nag-touch nga axis, dadto siya ang iyahang dari nakabutang. So since iyahang variable bali. So since nag-touch siya sa atong x-axis, so that means our equation sa atong directrix is x is equal to, so aha siya nga point, so this is 7. That is between by number 6 and 8. So we have x is equal to 7. How about our axis of symmetry? So axis of symmetry is just the perpendicular sa ato ang directrix, and mo na siya nga line ang nag-connect gikan sa atong focus, vertex, and sa ato ang directrix. So our axis of symmetry, kung aha naghati nga kanang mirror-like nga pagkahati sa atong parabola. So this is our axis of symmetry. So again, kung aha siya nga axis nag-touch, mao to siya yahang variable nga gamiton. So here, nag-touch siya sa y-axis. And iyang value is negative 4. That's why our axis of symmetry is equal to y is equal to negative 4. So we have these 3 answers. So nansira na nato silang tulo. So the standard equation, again, final answer nato sa atong example is y plus 4 squared is equal to negative 8. times x minus 5 from our preceding example, it can be written as y squared plus 8x plus 8y minus 24 is equal to 0. So, ginsa man na, sir. So, gi-expand lang ni siya, di ba? I-expand itong first square first term, then i-multiply ang first term, second term, and then times 2, then square the last term, kani kay gi-distribute, then it will become something like this. And this equation is the general form of the parabola. So, similar sa ato ang circle, 'di ba? Sa tong circle sa previous discussion nato sa module 1, naatay standard equation sa tong circle, then naapod tay general form sa tong circle. So general form is just the expanded form sa ato ang standard equation. So similarly sa ato ang parabola, more rapod siya. So general form is just the expanded form sa ato ang standard equation. Okay? So, if the equation is given in the general form, which is a times x squared plus cx plus dy plus e is equal to 0, where a and c are non-zeros, so si b ug si si d ug si e pwede ra sila 0, but si a and si c, they should not be equal to 0. Or we have b times y squared plus cx plus dy plus e is equal to 0. So, unsay kalainan nila? Ang naka-square dari is si y, ang naka-square dari is si x. So again, b and c should not be equal to 0. Kaya kung ma-0 ni, ma-cancel, mabilin, kanina lang sila. So that is not an equation of a parabola. Then we can determine the standard form by completing the square in both variables. So the same lang nga process sa tuang circle. If given tag general form, we are going to find its standard equation by completing the square in both variables so that we can easily identify the coordinates of our center, the coordinates of our vertex, our focus. So the same lang jud sila. So let's have an example. So we are asked to find the vertex, focus, directrix, and axis of symmetry of the parabola with the given equation. And we are asked to sketch the parabola and include these points and lines. So points are the katong vertex, focus, lines are the directrix, and the axis of symmetry. So for number 1, given taong general equation nga y squared minus 5x plus 12y is equal to negative 16. So what we are going to do first is katong variable nga naay square, mo to siya ang atong i-remain sa ato ang left side sa atong equation, and the variable and the constant nga walay square, mo pud to atong i-balhin sa right side sa atong equation. For the example number 1, ang naka-square nga variable is kani si y, diba? Y squared. Meaning, tanan nga na y nga variables should remain at the left side sa itong equation. And the rest should be transferred to the other side of our equation. So, that is the first step. So, we have y squared plus 12y is equal to, so negative 5x ang given. Pagbalhin sa pika side sa equation, may mo siyang positive 5x minus 16. Next step is we are going to complete the square of our both sides sa atong equation, or the kaning naay square nga part sa atong equation. So since atong y ang naay square nga part, so mo lang ni siya atong igamitan og completing the square. So again, unsa gito pag completing the square? So first rule, the coefficient of our variable that has square should be equal to 1. So for this case, si y squared kay iyang coefficient is equal to 1 na. So okay na to sa first rule. Second rule is to divide the coefficient of our y, so kani, so 12 divided by 2, that is equal to 6. After dividing it by 2, we are going to square it. So 6 squared is equal to 36. So mo ni siya atong gidungag sa iyahang equation. So copy the first and the second term, so y squared plus 12y plus, so mo ni siya ang atong gidungag, so that we can complete the square sa atong left side sa atong equation. So giusad ni si 36, that is 12 divided by 2. So that is 6. So 6 squared is 36. So always yun na siya nga kung mag-completing the square ka, you divide it by 2, then you square it. Given that the coefficient of our y squared is already equal to 1. So since nag-add man tag 36 sa tong left side sa equation, so to balance our equation, we are going to add also 36 sa tong right side sa tong equation. So that is 5x minus 16 plus 36, or negative 16 plus 36 is equal to positive 20. Excuse me. So that is 5x plus 20. Next is, kato na dayong i-factor na nato siya. Okay? So, ang factor ni y squared plus 12y plus 36 is equal to y plus 6 squared. So, ani gikan si square? Si 6, gi-divide lang natog 2 ni si 12y. Okay, so y plus 6 squared. So, sa pikas, atong gi-factor out si 5. So, pag factor out ni 5, ato lang i-divide di silang duha to 5. So, 5x divided by 5 is equal to x. Then, 20 divided by 5 is equal to 4. So, si 5 na nasa gawas. So, if you're going to distribute this, mubalik ta ani nga equation. So, 5 times x, that is 5x. 5 times 4, that is 20. Okay. So from our general form, kani nga given, naka-come up na ta into a standard equation sa tong parabola. So, from here, we can easily identify kung asa nag-atubang ang atong parabola, kung sa iyang vertex, kung sa iyang excuse me, kung sa iyang focus. So, the same reason why sa atong circle kay nangita ta og atong gipangita iyang standard equation if given ta og general form, so that we can easily identify sa unsa ang gipangita sa problem. So, unsa ang ganito pag-identify sa parabola? So, since ang ato ang y part sa tong equation ang naka-square, meaning our parabola is facing either sa right side or sa left side sa tong equation. So, again, ikan sa tong case dere. So, if atong y part ang naka-square, so the same ani, so it should be opening to our left or to our right. Okay? Next is the sign sa ato ang katong 4C. So, if it is positive, then it should be facing or opening to the right. And if it is negative, then it should be opening to the left. So, then by the equation, we can conclude that our parabola is opening to the right. Okay, so gapaana atong parabola. So, gapa-open siya dari. Gapaana siya, opening to the right. Then, so sa atong equation, we can identify already the value of our, or the coordinate of our vertex. So, ang coordinate sa atong vertex, again, this is the, identify na itong coordinate sa atong vertex sa tapad sa x o sa atong y. So, 'di ba, ang equation sa parabola opening to the right is y minus k squared equal to 4c x minus h. And our vertex, yung coordinate hk, 'di ba? The same sa center sa circle. So what is our h? So h is ang tapad sa tong x. So ang tapad sa tong x mo ni siya si h. Since sa tong standard equation, it should be negative. Then sa tong nakuha nga answer ikay positive. That means the value of our h is negative siya. Because negative times negative may siyang positive. So our x coordinate sa tong vertex is negative 4. And the y coordinate of our vertex is the same, negative po siya, or negative 6. So it has a vertex of negative 4 and negative 6. And from 4c, di ba, kani si 4c, parehas siya ni 5. So we can equate that 4c is equal to 5. And we divide both sides of our equation by 4 to find the value of our c. So makancel. So c is equal to 5 over 4, or that is 1.25. So sir, nga nung gi-decimal man nimo. So gi-decimal na ko siya para pag-plot sa to ang rectangular coordinates, ayun na siya. Sayon ra siya pag-approximate. So from there, di ba nakita na nato ang standard equation sa atong parabola. Then identify na nato ang vertex. So atong i-plot, dapit atong vertex. So atong vertex located siya sa negative 4 nga x. So negative 1, 2, 3, 4. So yung negative 6 nga y. So paubos. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So itagbo na nimo naa lugar dari si vertex located. And it is opening to the right. So atong vertex ay atong parabola gapaan na forma. Okay? So mo ni atong vertex V. Then di ba ang sa sulod sa atong vertex diha na to malocate ang ato ang focus. And sa likod sa tong vertex, dira po na to malocate ang ato ang directrix. So from here, ang ato lang buhaton is mag-count lang ta og c nga distance from our vertex going to our right. Then that is the coordinate sa ato ang focus. So our C, again, remember, is equal to 1.25. Meaning, from our vertex, mag-count tag 1 and 0.25. So, naa dari di ay located si focus. So, kalinya ra sila dapat ni vertex. Meaning, since kalinya ra sila ni vertex, so our focus have the same nga coordinate sa y-axis sa to ang V, di ba? So, focus nato, located Japon siya sa negative 6. So, ang nagkalahi is ang atong x-axis, ay ang x nga coordinate nato, kay dari na siya located. So, if this is negative 1, negative 2, then this is 0.75, di ba? Kay 0.75, kani kay 0.25, then kani kay 1. So, 1 and 0.25. So, meaning, ang atong x-coordinate is equal to negative 2.75. Or, pwede nimo na siya i-add. So, from negative 4, mag-add lang kag 1.25. So, you will get negative 2.75. So, mag-add lang ka, magdungag lang kag 1.25 steps. So, ano man add, sir? That is because, padulong ka sa imuhang right 'di ba? Kung imong value kay padulong sa right, meaning magkagamay siya or magkagamay siya dari sa negative nga side, or kung nasa sa positive nga side sa imong x-axis, magkadako siya. Meaning, madungagan ang imong value. So, you have to add. So, for the directrix, so ang directrix kay naman sa luyo sa tong vertex, meaning we are going to subtract. So, from negative 4, since atong directrix should be in line with our vertex and sa to ang focus, so ang ato ang directrix di ay nga L have negative 6 Japon nga y coordinate, and ang x na pod x Japon ang maglahi. So that is negative 4. This should be minus 1.25, or that is equal to negative 5.25. So atong directrix na siya dari ana tahay. So this is our line. So aha siya nag-touch. So nag-touch siya sa x-axis. So this is x is equal to negative 5.25. Okay? Then ang axis of symmetry is that is the line nga nag-separate sa to ang or nag-divide sa to ang parabola. So again, it is touching the y-axis, y part sa tong Cartesian plane, and ang iyang value is negative 6. So our axis of symmetry is equal to y negative 6. So mo na itong answer. So axis of symmetry is y is equal to negative 6. Our directrix is x is equal to negative 5.25. Our focus is located at kani negative 2.75 and negative 6. Then our vertex is negative 4, negative 6. Di ba? Ito ang mga kailangan na itong ansiran. Next is, we are going to sketch the parabola. So, mo na ni akong gibuhat kani pag-sketch. So, this is the better vision sa akong pag-sketch kung dili ninyo maklaro akong sketch. So, again, vertex is located at negative 4 and negative 6. Then, ang focus na siya dari, that is negative 2.75 and negative 6. Directrix nasa layo sa itong vertex. So, this is how you should sketch your graph. So, naka-indicate ang directrix, iyang value, naka-indicate ang coordinate sa imong focus, naka-indicate imong vertex, and kaning parabola, kanang dili na siya specific nga dapat dari dyan siya nga nag-point, dari siya nga nag-point dili. So, pwede ra nga magbuhat lang mo parabola. The important thing is kung aha nag-open imong parabola, kung sakto ba. So, dari for this problem, the parabola should be opening to the right. Okay? So, for number 2, this is just similar sa number 1, but ang x nga part sa atong equation ang naka-square. So, ang x part sa atong equation should remain at the left side, and the y part ay ang y nga variable sa atong equation ang ibalhin sa pika side sa equation. So, the same process, we are going to complete the square sa atong x. Then, we have this answer. Then, by the standard equation, we can easily identify our vertex, our focus, our directrix, our axis of symmetry, and we can sketch the graph. So, I will just skip this part. So, for the final example, so given dili na ta given but I sketch, ang given na sa to is focus and directrix. So, is it possible to find the standard equation? So, yes, it is possible because, di ba, kung given kag focus, atong focus is located at 7, 9, 7 cx. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 9. So, somewhere dari si focus. And si directrix daw kay naa siya sa y is equal to 3. So, 1, 2, 3. So naa diri si directrix or katong broken nga line. So since nadari atong directrix, then nadari atong focus, and always ang parabola kay nag-open siya opposite sa ato ang directrix. So our parabola should be facing upward. So pataas ang open sa atong parabola. And remember that vertex is located at the middle sa ato ang distance sa ato ang directrix ug sa atong focus, di ba? Di ba na kaprasa ni nga graph, di ba? Ang ato ang directrix na siya sa in between ay atong vertex na siya in between sa ato ang directrix and sa ato ang focus. So to find the distance ani, di ba? This is positive 3 and this is positive 9. So ilang distance kay 6. So ang midpoint niya, so we just have to divide it by 2. So 6 divided by 2 is equal to 3. Meaning, our C is equal to 3. So from here, we count 3. 1, 2, 3. So naaday dari ato ang vertex. And it is opening upward. So again, ang x part sa ato ang vertex is just the same sa x part sa ato ang focus. So ang x part sa atong focus is 7 and the y part is equal to 6. So nanatay coordinate sa ato ang v, and we already know our c, that it is equal to 3, or that is the distance from v to f and v to our directrix. So ang kailangan nato in finding the standard equation is the standard equation sa atong parabola kung aha siya atong case, since it is opening upward. So it should be x minus h squared is equal to 4c y minus k. Ana dapat, 'di ba? Then, ang atong pangitaon lang is k di. Atong pangitaon lang is si H, si C, ug si K. And we already found them. So, nanatay x minus our H is equal to 7 equal to 4 times C. So, 4 times 3, that is equal to 12. So, we have 12. Y minus our K is equal to 6. So, easy. So, we have our standard equation already, or this one. So the next part will be about situational problems involving parabolas. So that's all for the part 2 discussion of module 2, the parabolas.